Thank you, Your Excellency, distinguished and enthusiastic peers and colleagues. I am honored to return to this holy and historic space and share an introduction and update about Goodland's work. If you're not familiar with me, I'm Burhans. I have a background in scientific media and illustration, ecological landscape design and planning, cartography, and business development. And just over a week ago, I was announced as a 2018 Ashoka Fellow. Thank you. I am the executive director and founder of Goodlands. We are working to bring Catholic conservation to the scale and impact of Catholic healthcare and education as the largest global network of its kind. I need the clicker, sorry. Thank you. Okay. Is it working?
Do we have the,
okay. Next slide.
Do you have the clicker?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
But it's, let me try. Okay. Well, I have some maps to show, but I guess I'll just keep talking. So we are bringing together the most powerful technology for large-scale environmental planning and sustainability, geographic information systems with the church, the global organization collectively with the most land and people, to help the Catholic Church become a worldwide leader in conservation. This past year, we completed our first 5 proof-of-concept projects and experienced a dramatic rise in project requests, including Episcopal conferences in East Africa, dioceses in the United States and Latin America, various women's religious orders in the United States, and increasing interest in our work from all levels of the church. People are beginning to truly understand the power of the approach with this technology to enable the church to help solve the world's biggest problems.
Sorry to interrupt you. Can you just please slow down a little bit so the translators can catch up? Thank you.
So one of the challenges that we've faced in our proof of concept work is we've done work with Catholic education, helping with school suitability, with development in dioceses, but very few people still understand the connection between land and ecology. And groups like GCCM and the Arise Initiative are really important for communication and inspiration of Laudato Si and the message. And then we have found our role kind of in this science-based implementation program. We're partners with ESRI, the GIS leaders that provide software and solutions for nearly all major conservation organizations worldwide, and I work directly with the CEO, continuing this year, who opened the company in technology and staff to aid our efforts. Once we realized that the Catholic Church had never done a global mapping study and didn't even really know what they owned, we developed the first geospatial data set of the global church. This required a tremendous amount of staff resources and talent. This data forms the basis of our 3-tiered approach. The first step is we provide property use and management guidelines for individual dioceses and religious orders, every one of which has unused or underutilized spaces. We enable our clients to use their property to its full potential while reducing its risk. The second step is that we scale our land use globally. We're creating continuously updating global data infrastructure that uses AI and blockchain technologies to create an intelligent system that learns from our individual diocese studies and other data in order to effectively inventory land and provide guidance to all dioceses worldwide on how to best use their properties and resources for maximum positive social and environmental impact, such as caring for immigrants, supporting biodiversity, all while improving their financial well-being. Our emerging partnership from this year, one of the biggest ones with the Cadastral Foundation, will help us ensure that our projects also secure land tenure rights for Catholic institutional landowners and their users worldwide. Okay, there we go. Wonderful, okay. The third step is that we plug our spatial data infrastructure, which is now in its 3rd phase, into a system developed by Georgetown that I'll talk about. That reads hundreds of thousands of articles a day, and the result is a powerful predictive system that will predict trends in climate change, migration, disease, famine, and more. And it already is in beta and has an 82% accuracy. These will be the key tool for the Catholic Church to be effective in fighting the world's biggest problems of this century and beyond. So I'm going to speak somewhat about a current project that we're doing with human trafficking, forced migration, and prostitution in relation to Catholic networks. So we're taking a 2-pronged approach to this work. First, we're looking at different variables, climate change, disease, conflict, and the economy as drivers of migration, which are likely linked to increased human trafficking and trafficking for the purpose of slave labor, which in turn can include forced prostitution. The more that you're moving bodies around through forced migration, the more risk that there is for human trafficking generally. So our two-pronged approach, we're doing a short-term kind of static maps project with students at Yale, our team in Ethiopia, and our team in the United States. And then we are engaged in a longer-term kind of living maps projects that is integrating the program from Georgetown that I previously mentioned. And the anticipated end date for the static maps is March, April 2019, but I will share an update about where we are with those. And I'll also share a bit about what's going on with the living map situation with forced migration. So this is a map, a preliminary map. It says draft, not for decision making, because we need GDP data in it. But we're starting to look at what we call crisis dioceses versus dioceses that are going to be experiencing an influx of inward migration, and then dioceses that aren't really impacted very much by the variables that are driving migration. So you can see from this map, we can extract the specific dioceses with data about the bishops who oversee them that are likely at the most risk for increased migration inwards. We can combine this with information about migratory routes and start to get a better picture about how Catholic infrastructure in these areas can support the increasing problem of migration globally. These are some of the students that I work with at Yale on this project. And I'm just going to share a few breakdowns of the variables that are going into this. So this is sea level change, and we're looking at, this is a prototype in the United States, sea level change in relation to dioceses and Catholic properties, and also in relation to large population data sets. So this is helping us see how sea level rises are going to impact areas of large population, which dioceses those are in. With GDP data, this is really going to show us where there are people that are quite poor that might not have the climate resilience and where they will be migrating outwards. We're also looking at this through an economic lens. So this was a regressive analysis that was done by one of the students at Yale. And you can see that it's quite choppy at the moment. It's because the economic data that we have a hold of is only national. So we need to find subnational data for GDP to really make these maps, I think, useful. And then the EOS system at Georgetown is collecting, screening over 100,000 articles a day. It currently has an archive of over 700 million articles, and it measures uncertainty and dread using artificial intelligence from articles that are scraped. It looks at the risk to human life, uncertainty, and a variety of factors that are driving migration. And these are some of the partners that are working with that as well. That includes Jesuit Refugee Services and Michigan State University and a variety of research institutions and NGOs. So why this is useful at all is when we think about what we're all going to be facing in the coming century, it's really a massive crisis. By 2050, we project, not us actually, I should say experts project that there should be 25 million to 1 billion migrants. And that might not sound like a terribly large number, but if it's on the higher end of the spectrum, we have a huge amount of work to do. So the implications for this mapping is that for Catholic networks and leadership, they'll have better intelligence for response, accommodation, and intervention. And for us at Goodlands, we're figuring out where we're mapping Catholic properties for crisis response versus where we're actually helping communities plan for land in a more long-term vision. We're also using this to classify dioceses around the world. I showed the crisis classification, but also based on different ecological sensitivities and social sensitivities. So in 2016, I attended my first Vatican Youth Symposium, and each meeting has been critical for me helping understand the SDGs more and to communicate our goals to a broader audience. The SDGs were universally adopted by 193 member states of the UN months after Laudato Si was released, and they reflect many of the truths from the encyclical, including a deep understanding of the integral nature of problems we must address. They were adopted by the UN shortly after Pope Francis addressed the audience, and they are symbolically and practically a bridge of communication between religions with faith-inspired work towards the common good and an increasingly secularized world. I was skeptical of the SDGs during my first Vatican Youth Symposium. To me, it was just another metric I had to discuss. But now I truly understand them and the surrounding documentation as a critical tool and language for intercultural dialogue that enables us to work towards the common good. So in 2016, that same year, I walked down the most spectacular hall of maps that I've ever seen in my life, the third loggia of the Apostolic Palace, to ask if there was a diocesan boundary set or permission to make it if there was none. And this past summer, during the Laudato Si anniversary conference, I had the opportunity and honor to share one of our maps with Pope Francis. I chose Catholics per diocese so that he could see where his flock resided for the first time, embellished with the cosmic visions of St. Hildegard von Bingen, my confirmation saint. All of this work has had so much work and love poured into it, and I think every single delegate can speak for what they've accomplished in the last couple of years. And in moments like this, it comes full circle with deep consolation. 3 years ago, some of us sat here with ideas, with small organizations, with a fresh set of global boundaries and a new global vision of the church and her people. And we all perhaps had a childlike naivety that was, and I hope still is, one of our greatest assets, because we did not fully realize how much emotional, physical, and spiritual endurance our journeys from that day to now would require. I am so proud and honored to be in the presence of everyone in this room. St. John Paul the Great tenderly reminded us, there is no cross to bear that Christ has not already borne for us and does not now bear with us. The challenges that we face are great, but take courage, find joy, and know that you are never alone on your journey, and we are doing it. But like Jeffrey Sachs said this morning, we need to do more. Thank you.
Thank you, Norma.